Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to BVS First TED Talk. My name is E, and I am very honored to be one of the guest speakers for today. When it comes to choosing a topic, I struggled greatly because I wanted to choose something simple, something that you guys are already aware of, but I also needed to be something that isn't as widely discussed. Sounds like an impossible task at first, but I think I figured it out. Before we get into the main topic, I would like to bring your attention towards this word, femininity. So, what is femininity? Is it like, you need to start wearing some makeup? Or is it like, you need to talk in a more calm manner? These are often the stereotypes that comes along with this word. But if we're basing it off on the official definition only, then it is the qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of women and girls. Conversations about femininity are common in our everyday life, and people tend to use the word feminine as a way to describe themselves or the people around them. People equate femininity with being a woman who embodies the characteristics of being nurturing, demure, or sweet. But femininity cannot be understood as a fixed set of essential traits that characterize all women. As a scholarly concept, this word can carry diverse meanings and numerous interpretations. Therefore, though we do have an actual definition of the word, it is up to each individual to decide on how they want to interpret it, or whether they would like to follow these traits or not. And that brings us on to the main topic of today, toxic femininity. In general, toxic femininity is the adherence to the gender binary in order to receive conditional value in patriarchal societies. It is a concept that restricts women to being passive, submissive, gentle, and deriving their value from physical beauty while being pleasant to men. However, it could also refer to how women tend to use their own femininity as an excuse to coerce others into following the same set of standards that are considered as acceptable by society. The majority of you may have already heard of this word, but we often fail to recognize about how harmful the consequences of it could be. Instead, we hear all these conversations about what toxic masculinity is, the causes, the solutions to it, and how to encourage men to break free from these stereotypes. But the same cannot be said for toxic femininity, and I believe this results in a more dangerous consequence because young girls will continuously be trapped into the cycle of pressure from societal expectations. Therefore, I am glad to have an opportunity to share my thoughts and experience regarding this matter, shed light on some problems that should not be undermined, and hopefully offer some insight that may change the way you think. Today, we are going to focus on two main aspects of toxic femininity from a feminist point of view. The first one being coercing women into conforming to the traditional feminine traits. Lots of young girls might think to themselves that they are already aware of these expectations and that they would never follow it. But I am certain that at some point in our lives, we have all felt the pressure to conform, including myself. This is me back in primary. Now, just by judging from this photo, do you think I was shy or perhaps maybe I was already confident? Can somebody have an answer, please? Anyone? Yes? You think I was shy back then? That's very interesting. It may or it may not be a shock to some of you, but I was actually very confident in myself. I was very talkative. I always had something in mind to say. I was not afraid to stand up for myself, hence why I was never really bullied in my life. I've always had a voice, and even from a young age, I was very bold, strong, and assertive. Were there any potential insecurities? The truth is no. I didn't have any because I was perfectly fine in the way that I looked and in the way that I acted. And this is my best friend Tao. She is kind-hearted, gorgeous both inside and out. She's empathetic and she's very feminine. In my opinion, she embraced these traits very gracefully. And though we were the complete opposites, but we were still the bestest of friends. And just like everyone else when I was growing up, I had a crush. A massive one, actually. Let's name him John, shall we? Because I don't personally know anyone named John, so hopefully this will be less awkward. There comes an opportunity, and it was my time to see whether this guy likes me back or not. So I thought I was being smart, and I asked him the typical question. John, what's your ideal type? And I had an answer. But before I reveal it to you, let's have a short quiz time, shall we? I'm going to give you guys two options, and afterwards, please raise your hand according to what you think happened. The first option being, John described his ideal type and it matches me perfectly. Sounds like the perfect answer. The second option is, John described his ideal type and it matches my best friend Tao's description. Who thinks it's the first one? One, two. Are you guys serious? Seriously? Fine, who thinks it's the second option then? Yeah, thank you for having so much faith in me. But unfortunately, you guys are correct. If it wasn't obvious enough to you, then John's ideal type was total opposite of me. He said he prefers girls who possess more feminine traits. And that is not a bad thing at all. It's all about the matter of preference. But for me, at such a young age, I couldn't comprehend this fact, and I let it dictate my perspective on what being feminine is. At this point, my whole world collapsed. I did shed a few tears then and there because for the first time in my life, I actually cared about how others perceived me as a girl. But John was not the whole reason to why I started to doubt in my femininity. It's important to consider other factors too. The first one being family. As much as I love everyone in my household, there is a pressure to act a certain way in order to be praised by them. My grandparents had very traditional views, and they would prefer me to strictly adhere to what is considered feminine during their generation. We also have the use of social media, and using it at such a young age is very harmful for me because I couldn't differentiate between what is reality and what is fake. Seeing all these influencers dressing up or acting a certain way, it made me want to do the same because I also wanted to be desired like them. I'm sure that this is a universal experience, but the consequences are often overlooked. We became unaware of the changes we made to ourselves, resulting in lots of insecurities. As I was going through my own identity crisis, I stopped being proud of my achievements. My grandparents weren't very fond of the idea of me spending so much time in school. They often criticized my mom and I because they believed that I could have used this period of time to do something much more useful with my life, such as learning the skills that apparently every woman needs. I also started to dress in a more feminine way. The sweatpants, the hoodies, they're the most comfortable type of clothing. But I thought to myself, it wouldn't make me appear to be more desirable, right? So why should I continue wearing them? And last but not least, the way I forced myself to lose weight. The scale became my biggest enemy, and it is still a very traumatizing experience up until now. It happens all around the world, but especially for Asian standards, your weight is something very important to you. Even if you're at a perfectly normal or healthy weight, you would still be judged because their standards are simply impossible to attain. After every single meal, I would step on the scale, looked down at the number, freaked out, stepped down from the scale, and then proceeded to starve myself for days. It is not a pleasant memory, and it is certainly not a healthy way of living. But it is an example to show how far young girls and women are willing to go to in order to fit in. In a research from a Chinese newspaper called Global Times, they conducted an interview which focuses on a man named Xiao Tang. He argues that in order for a woman to achieve full happiness, she must conform to the traditional gender role that she has been given. He also believed that those who do conform find it easier to be loved. This type of statement is very dangerous because it tends to prey on innocent individuals who are already insecure about themselves and making them feel the need to adhere to these expectations in order to not feel left out. The consequences are very damaging. It can lead to excessive emotional manipulation, making women feel awful for wanting to find their own identity. It can raise competition and perfectionism, and the pressure to maintain such impossible standards may lead to anxiety, self doubt, and even depression. It could also result in objectification and internalized misogyny, feeling as if you're not as worthy as your male peers. These traits, when embraced to an extreme, can influence women's self perception of themselves, hinders personal growth, and perpetuate further gender inequality. The main point that I'm trying to make is that a woman can be bold, strong willed, and confident without being judged for being too much. She should still be considered a proper woman without having to attribute to the traditional feminine traits that she has been given. Because, from a feminist point of view, feminism is about encouraging women to take control of their own identity and to not feel ashamed to express who they are as a person. Therefore, regardless of what your intentions are, but coercing women to follow traditional feminine traits is a form of toxic femininity. Now, moving on to the second point, and that is shaming women for not meeting modern day standards of femininity. This is the complete opposite to the first point because in this case, we are saying that following traditional feminine traits are acceptable as long as it's of your own will. Before we dive deep into this topic, I would like to introduce you to a very well-known actress, Emma Watson. She is a fantastic actress starring in worldwide famous movies, and she's also an outspoken feminist. She is confident, she's a career woman, and she's not afraid to stand up for what she believes in. To put it in short, she embodies all the traits that feminists have been trying to fight for decades. And this is Meg March, a character from a brilliant book named Little Women. She is played by the actress Emma Watson, and we could say that this character is very different to how Emma chooses to portray herself to the public in real life. Emma has stated that she likes to play characters that are different from each other because she wants to show that a woman can be versatile and therefore should not be limited to just one role. Back to the character of Meg March. She is demure. She is dutiful and responsible in her role as a daughter, sister, and eventually a mother. She embodies the traditional feminine traits that are often favored by society from a long time ago. But modern femininity tends to characterize women like her as being weak. They would say that her character is pathetic, pitiful, fragile, and quite frankly, embarrassing. Perhaps the reason for this is because women feel the need to bring others down in order to feel validated by society's modern expectations. Because it is true that in a modern society, women who have careers or are in high positions of power are very well respected, making it easy to shame those who do not follow the same path. According to an article from a student in Pennsylvania State University, he discussed about the constant changes in people's interpretations of femininity. There's a significant line that I highlighted, which says people believe that those who do not fit neatly into the set gender roles might be flawed somehow. This statement is very accurate because we can see that from decades ago up until recent times, the idea of femininity is still changing. Though the definition stays the same, but people are interpreting it differently based on what the media is advocating for or based on what the people around them are telling them to do. Therefore, anyone who seems out of the current norm are often discriminated, mistreated, or even exiled from their own community. This may be the main reason why women who don't meet modern standards of femininity may be characterized as weak, and this acts as an obstacle for society to be truly able to express themselves. It is perfectly fine if you want to get married. It should also not be a big deal if you want to stay as a housewife. And it certainly should not be a problem if you want to start having children of your own, as long as it's your own choice. Linking this back to the character of Meg March, these are all the things that she has ever dreamed of. There's a quote from her that has just stuck with me for a very long time, in which she says, "Just because my dreams are different than yours doesn't mean they're unimportant." Life is different for everyone. And even the people you think you know inside and out, they still have secret wants and desires that they want to pursue. Sometimes they'll be in contradiction to what we value or what we want for ourselves. But it's important to step back and acknowledge that the difference of opinion or desire does not invalidate either person. Regardless of what your dreams are, as long as it's healthy and as long as it makes you happy, then there is no reason why anyone should make you feel unimportant for it. People tend to use the feminism movement as the way to coerce women into following the modern standards of femininity. Fake feminism includes believing you could do no wrong just because you're a woman, believing that a woman could only act a certain way. This has been proven to be harmful over and over again, and it's finally time to start accepting that feminism is about encouraging women to embrace themselves, not to force them to follow the expectations that they are clearly uncomfortable with. True feminism includes believing that both genders should have equal opportunities, and the most important point, giving women a choice. Feminism is about liberation. It's about giving each individual freedom, and it's about accepting every single person, regardless of what your opinions are. And it is not fair to use feminism as an excuse to shame women for not choosing the same path. The two aspects that I focus on today are all examples of toxic femininity. We tend to associate these words with the traditional toxic feminine traits, but we tend to forget to look at the other side, which is how modern femininity could also be very harmful. The main takeaway that I hope you could take from this is to realize that there is no need for you to force yourself to change. My English teacher once told me that I shouldn't waste my time on people who have such revolting thoughts, because most of the time, they will still be entitled to their own opinion. So it's best to just ignore them. And I think you should do the same. Even if they don't accept you, then there is always a community that is willing to love you for the person that you choose to be. And therefore, there should be no need for you to conform to the feminine traits just because they're deemed as desirable by society. I hope this talk has brought more awareness on what toxic femininity is and inspire you to take control of your own life. Because society, your family, your friends, the people around you, they're not the ones who get to experience your life. It should be only up to you. So please be honest to yourself and choose to live in the way that is the most fulfilling to you. With that being said, have a wonderful day and thank you so much for your time. Thank you.